We're continuing in the Mishnah Yomi in Terumot for Chaf Daled Sivan. We are at the last Mishnah, Mishnah Vav, in Perek Bet, in the second Perek, and we've been talking about tithing, separating Terumah from one item to exempt another item. And we just learned about the concept of separating from the Yafeh, from the best item of that type that you have, versus the mitkayim, one that will last longer if a kohen is not readily available. Now, Mishnah Vav has a variation on this theme. V'tormin zete shemen al zete kevish. You can take truma from olives that are meant for oil. These are big, plump, juicy olives. Al zete kevish. Zete kevish are olives that are going to be for pickling. These are not juicy, oily, fat olives. They're more schwer. They're more skinny olives that you're gonna pickle them and eat them pickled. You're not going to press them into oil. Now, obviously, oil is the best form of olives, so it's the most useful form of olives, and the most commonly used was for oil. So that would be the better item. So you could take from you separate out and give to the kohen the ones that are for oil, and to exempt the ones that are for pickling. V'lo zete kevish o zete shemen, but not vice versa, because those are inferior olives. V'yayin she'ena mevushal ala mevushal, and wine that has not been boiled onto the boiled wine. V'lo mina mevushal al she'ena mevushal, but we don't take truma from the mevushal wine and give that to the kohen to exempt the non-mevushal wine, because non-mevushal wine, as any idol-fearing idolater will tell you, is the best wine for libations. They won't even use the mevushal stuff for libations, and of course, this is why we would allow a non-Jew to handle mevushal wine. It doesn't affect it, because mevushal wine, the cooked wine, is not employed for libations. We are, of course, talking about kosher wine. So if an idolater handles kosher wine that is not mevushal, it's not cooked, he treifs it up, because there's a concern that this was commonly used for libations. It's actually, there's a continuation of this idolatrous minhag today, when there's a group of fellows downtown, and one of the fellows is, God forbid, killed in the gang war or by the police or whatever it is. So they take some of their 40-ounce canister of beer, and they pour it out on the street in memorial. So that's a zecher. Obviously, that's a zecher to the libations of old that the idolaters used to do with eina mevushal wine. The Mishnah explains, Zeh haklal, this is the general rule. Kol shehu kilayim bechaveru, a species which is kilayim with its chaver, with a similar species. Lo yitro mizeh el zeh, you can't take truma one to another. They're not the same thing. Afilu min yafel raw, even if you had a very nice juicy one onto a less nice one, and again, they're similar things. They're not very different. Kol she'enu kilayim bechaveru, if it's not kilayim, meaning it's the same item exactly, Terumah min yafel raw, always take from the better one. Avolo min raw liyafa, not from the inferior one to the superior one. V'im tarim min raw liyafa, trumata truma. But if you did so, b'diavad, it works, because you're within the same species. Chutz min zunin alachitin, but zunin alachitin doesn't work. Zunin is a really bad kind of wheat. It's in the same family as wheat, and it's similar to wheat, but it's only used for animals. They would feed it to doves. Sheinan ochel, so the zunin is not eaten by humans at all. So taking truma from your zunin to exempt your proper wheat, which is going to be for humans, doesn't work. Akishut malafafen. Now this is interesting. These are min echad. These are one species. Now we would translate. It's hard to translate this. These are basically cucumbers and the article says Kirby cucumbers, but we know when we go to the store we have the mini cucumbers and the big cucumbers. So it's a similar situation to that, where cucumbers come in two sizes, or even more than two sizes, the small ones and the big ones. Rebuta says these are two different things. Moving on to Mishnah Aleph in the third parak, and continuing with the cucumber study. Haturim kishut v'nimtzat mara. So somebody separates a cucumber as his truma for other cucumbers, and it's bitter. It's a spoiled cucumber. Avatiach v'nimtzat ruach, or watermelon, and nebuch, it's all rotten inside. It's all squishy and juicy and not edible. Now, watermelon was one of those things that the man wouldn't taste like, as we learned in the parsha. Truma. So it is valid truma. It has the kedusha, but you have to give him one that's actually ripe and edible and not all mushy or bitter. Hatorim chavit shel yayin, he separates out a barrel of wine. When they open up the barrel of wine, now it's vinegar. If he knew it was vinegar before, until before he took it, einan truma. That's not truma at all. The reasoning is because vinegar is not wine. They're two different species. As we just learned in the prior Mishnah and the prior parak, that doesn't work. But if after he took truma, it was wine before, he took the truma, and then it turned sour, turned to vinegar, Harez truma. It is truma. It was wine when he separated. Im safek, but if you don't exactly know when this barrel of wine became a barrel of vinegar, truma v'yachaz v'yitrum. So the first one is designated as truma because it might have been perfectly good wine, or at least decent wine, when he separated the truma, but he has to go back and give him something that's wine, that's really edible. But because of the safek, there's a bit of a problem here. Harishona, the first barrel of wine, it doesn't make dimua. Dimua is what happens when truma falls into a mixture of other items, and there's less than 100 there. We're going to learn later that truma is bottle, is nullified in 101. So what if it falls into 50? Well, it's not nullified, it makes dimua, it makes a mixture. If you don't know which one is the truma, you don't know where the truma's at, you got a problem. It makes dimua bifnei otzma. So here it's a safek, so if it falls into 50, it doesn't make dimua, because it was only safek truma. Ein chayavin alaya humish, and if a non-Kohen eats it, he would have to pay back the Kohanim what he ate. Again, this is b'shogeg. Lechatchila, you can't eat it because it's safek truma, goes to the Kohen only. But if a non-Kohen ate it, he is not chayav to pay the chomesh, the 25% fee. And so too the second one, which he has to give, it's also safek, so it wouldn't make dimua, and he wouldn't be chayav on it a chomesh. When we say a chomesh is 1/5, but it's 1/5 of the total. So if he ate 4 cucumbers, he would have to pay back 5 cucumbers. Shkoyach Rabosai.